Kenzie,
Spidey.
welcome to the second edition of the Findon from the Hill End podcast.
Very excited, very excited.
Our second guest is tucked away around the corner.
Yeah, come on, can't wait. Come on, give me a clue.
Okay, this person raised his bat in the most famous game in Findon's history. I'll make it even easier for you. He scored 100 at Lords.
Oh, Alistair Cook.
No, Findon player.
Oh, that's a shame. Findon player scored 100 at Lords. Toby Kingsbury.
Toby Kingsbury, come on down. Findon. Okay, welcome to the Findon podcast. This is From the Hill End with myself, Spider Nichols, and my good pal Simon Cairns. Hi, Simon.
Evening, Spidey.
We're in the long furlong clubhouse here at Findon CC, and our guest for today is the current Findon Vice Chairman, Mr. Toby Kingsbury. Toby, you're a Findon legend. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Spider. What an intro.
Yeah. Well, we like to big up our guests.
And then knock them down.
Oh, that's to come.
Yeah.
So how the podcast works is we've asked you for your favourite Findon cricket team of your career with Findon. And we're going to talk about a few other little bits and pieces. But before we kind of get into the selection, Tobes, just talk us through your earliest memories of Findon, when you joined, who the kind of people were that you joined with back in the day.
Blimey. Right, well, I think I started probably about 13, started playing Colts cricket, played a lot under Pete Stedman, do you remember Pete? And in fact, stuck with Pete through the age groups, and he led us to the festival final in the under-16s. And probably the standout for me was, as a junior cricketer, was playing at Arundel Castle in the festival final against Felbridge, I think it was. And I remember Chris Young got 99. Brilliant batter, Chris, as a junior. Always thought he was going to go on to do great things. But Chris Young got caught out on 99 by somebody with one arm.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Used to play carried on and played senior cricket for Felbridge. Good bowler and bat. Good bat as well. Yeah.
So, great memories as a junior. Mike Metters was always ever present, sort of in terms of the junior ranks. Played a lot with the likes of Jimbo, Sully, Chris Young, Matt Young, his brother. So, special memories. Left for a brief hiatus and played at Palatine Park for Pathfinder, and then saw the light and came back to Findon in 1998, I think.
Who was captain then?
I'm going to look at the board. Fishy, wasn't it?
Yeah, John Rogers. Yeah, indeed.
So came under Fishy's wing and haven't looked back. So I think I've been here about since then. Senior cricket wise, 24, 5 years, 6 years, something like that.
Great. And now your boys play?
Yes, thoroughly enjoying watching my boys come through. So I manage the under 14s that they were playing. I've played a few games with them in the third 11 last year as well. Hope to play a few more this year if
you're selected.
If selected, if my body can cope with it. But great to see them coming through, and fantastic to see that we're now in a place where we've got junior cricket from under 9s or even younger, right the way up to under 15s. We've not had that for many years. So we're in a good place.
Okay, well, we're here to find out what your favourite team is. Now, we often start with the opens. You don't have to do that if you want to pick whoever you want on your team. Obviously, before we do that, heads or tails?
Heads, always.
Yeah, what you're going to do is heads?
We're going to bat.
Okay, good. So who are you going to open the batting with?
Okay, well, let me just, before we dive in, I want to just give you my definition of favourite, because obviously you've said this is not necessarily the best 11, it's your favourite 11. So it's not necessarily the best side, although the side that I've picked, I reckon, will beat most teams, to be fair. I've gone for players that I've played a lot of cricket with over the last 25 plus years. players that have got a special talent in one way or another, players that I've personally shared my favourite cricketing moments with, and ultimately players that I always enjoy having a few beers after the game with. So it's been incredibly difficult, I think it's fair to say, to narrow these down. And although this is my personal favourite 11, doesn't mean there aren't others that I've played with and enjoyed playing with over the years and shared special memories with. So,
Spy, did you get the feeling that we're both being let down gently here?
Yeah,
I feel it. I feel it coming.
And there's only going to be 10 other Christmas cards arriving on its map.
We'll see. Let's see.
We're not going to be openers. We know that much already.
Playing, I don't think.
But I've approached this, by grouping them into openers, middle order batters. I've got an all-rounder, although to be honest, the team's packed full of all-rounders. And obviously bowlers. I developed a bit of a long list for each of these groups, then narrowed them down to my final selection. And I've got a number of sort of, if you like, special mentions or people who didn't quite make it. But so that's my sort of approach to all
Good
this.
stuff. Can't wait. Go on then.
Right, okay.
Who's opening the batting?
Opening the batting, number one, I'm going with Bradley Bridson. So Bradley he's a proper cricket badger. But he's also Findon Cricket Club through and through. I think he would probably bleed black and gold. He's been through the junior ranks. He was club captain for 8 years. I've worked out that might be the longest. It's certainly the longest in a row, I think.
Yep, Harris. Yeah, as we've discussed on another podcast, Harris did a long stint, but had a couple of injury breaks. A broken arm and a back injury, which broke it up.
He split it out. Yeah. Although I think Nige, to be fair, I think he might have also done 8 as well. Looking at the board, 99 to 06.
Yep, 7 or 8. Yes, the Nige as well. Yeah.
Anyway, so the thing about Brad as well is that he was a genuine club captain. I think that's really important. So not just about the first team. He was always interested, or is always interested, in what's happening across all sections of the club. We all know he's an explosive opening batter. He scored nearly 10,000 runs for the club. Also a pretty underrated leg spin bowler, despite the fact he's got the weirdest action.
Yes, indeed.
But he spins it very hard, very effectively. Genuinely nice guy. I've always enjoyed playing cricket with Brad. And I think one thing that I think stands out is that I think his leadership over recent years has helped to cultivate a really welcoming first 11 environment. I think there's no egos, there's no prima donnas in the side, and he always ensured that we played it in the right spirit. I think he's one of the few sort of modern day captains who makes an effort with the opposition. You know, we'll have a beer with them afterwards and a chat. Made us a team that I think everybody enjoys playing against. I don't think we have the same reputation that some of our other teams have. And I think there's a lot to be said for that in the modern game. So, yeah, that's my number one.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing who he's opening the batting with.
Okay. Well,
there'll be no quick singles, we know that. Sorry, Brad.
Well, no, that's true, but Brad hits lots of boundaries, so that's fine. Right, my other opener, I've gone for certain Nick Gifford, so a.k.a. the Duke or Stretch. Nick's a true Findon legend, obviously son of the trainer of the great Aldeniti, the horse that's on our badge, I believe.
Correct.
Giff was a stylish Gower-esque, is that fair to say?
Mate, he is not going to believe, A, he's in the team, and B, you've called him Gower-esque.
Yeah. He was a left-hander. Nick's a left-hander. There's a start.
Well, I think he was a lovely stroke player. Yeah. He was a joy to watch. The other thing I loved about watching Giff back was the fact he wore a wide-brimmed sun hat, which, as you know, I was always partial to, hence my nickname, Cowboy. Great guy. I've got one amusing story. Well, no, there were more amusing stories involving Giff, but the one that stands out is when he was playing, I think he was playing for the Village House against us, friendly game of an evening, and Ollie Silverthorne was bowling to me, and his wife Ruth drove up in a brand new, I can't remember if it was a Range Rover or an X5. It was when she was working for Jeremy Kyle. Anyway, lovely new shiny 4x4. and in her wisdom decided to park it pretty much where the ropes are over there. Now, bearing in mind we were on the artificial and Ollie was bowling his pies, bless him.
His looping leg spin.
His looping leg spin.
Yeah.
Can you edit that?
No.
So I was batting, and I suggested to Nick that she might want to move the car, perhaps, particularly as we were on the artificial wicket. No, Boise, it'll be fine, was the response from Stretch. So a couple of balls later, I asked him again, I really, really think you should move the car, get Ruth to move the car. He insisted it would be okay. No, Boise, it's fine. So then Ollie bowls a juicy half volley on leg stump, which I've flicked up the hill, straight through the back of Ruth's brand new Range Rover or X5, what it was, right through the back windscreen. And Stretch just fell to his haunches and head in hands. Anyway, so great guy, Nick. And on his day, very, very good batter.
Well, he played in the Village Cup semi-final at Sully Centurions, I seem to remember, because there was a piece in the Sporting Life or the Racing Post showing him playing a very correct cover drive, which I think is the only time I've ever really seen him play a straight batted shot.
I think you're being
He was
harsh.
a bit of a slogger.
There was he could get a little bit of bottom handing wrong, but no, Nick could play some proper shots. He had a long reach.
Yeah.
And balls that looked like they were a decent length suddenly seemed to be half volleys, a bit like yourself, Toby. You kind of had that range of stroke.
Yeah. There was another story involving Gary Botting and Giffey's boat shoe, but we won't go into that.
No, we won't go into that.
That's not one for the podcast.
Okay, so they're my two openers. I've got a couple of special mentions for others that didn't quite make it. I've got Graham Waller. Now, Graham was certainly a character. His razor-sharp tongue and biting whip, not perhaps everyone's cup of tea, but personally I always enjoyed playing cricket with him. I'd always much rather have him on my team than play against him. Obviously, Graham was captain of the team that got to Lords. Pretty sure we won the league that year as well. And he scored around about 4,500 runs across his 8 or so seasons at Findon. And from my perspective, I've got a couple of standout memories of batting with Graham. One was our partnership at Lords, but also we shared a 200-run partnership up here against Burgess Hill in 2004. It's great play cricket, isn't it?
Yeah, you can go back to find it.
We ended up 101 not out and 102 not out, having declared at 230 for one. So that was a
who was the unlucky? Who missed out?
I think it was my other also ran, Anthony Lofty Mullen.
Yeah.
I reckon
he probably came down to us in the twos. That was probably around this time he was struggling for runs and got dropped. Maybe. Came down into the twos, got 100 and went straight back up and never looked. Never looked back.
So Lofty's my other one. A belligerent opening bat, best known for using his pad more than his bat. I think it's fair to say. Passionate West Ham fan, great sense of humour and always good value in the bar.
Really good value.
Very funny guy. And so there we go.
Well, that's going to hopefully get us off to a good start.
Yeah,
quick start.
It could
they
be
won't
quick
be hanging
start.
around with those two.
If those two are in for 10 overs, we've got a decent start.
Yeah, I definitely think there'll be boundaries. I'm not quite sure. I think Nick might ram Bradley out and then probably hurt his knee. Because there was that famous story when Giffey tripped over on the artificial and ripped his cartilage and didn't play for a long time.
Okay, middle order?
We can go straight into the middle order, Toby. Let's do it.
I have to say we're sport for choice when it comes to the middle order. There are so many I could have chosen, but I've packed it with 4 big guns, I reckon. Although
there's hope for a jet spice, big guns.
I'm not sure I'm making the team, to be honest.
So my number 3 would be Simon Leggy or Susie, as he was known, I think, because of his long hair.
He did have a kind of mullet, the length of...
Well, he had it before it was... Well, when it was originally in fashion.
Yeah.
Late 80s.
With whether he was influenced by our overseas Peter Boyd, who was he was Mullet-esque when he came over, wasn't he? So
is it fair to say Leggy perhaps kept it going for longer than
he
should have done?
Yeah,
For Mullet.
Yes, I think that's fair.
He was nailed on really as my first choice, number 3, mainly because of his square drive, which was a thing of beauty.
Quick hands.
Late hands. I think the
quick through the ball.
But I can still visualise sitting up here on the terrace, looking down and watching it come up the hill and thud against the wall in front of me. You hear a lot about really good batters who play the ball late. I think Leggy's a perfect example of that. He scored 122 not out at Whisperer back in '99. One of the best innings I think I've had the pleasure of watching.
And would Leggy have kept for a lot of the time you played with him?
He was a brilliant wicketkeeper. He was also well known for the Leggy stare.
Yep.
So inflicted on anyone who dared to misfield or dared to throw the ball in on the half volley,
or bowl down the leg side.
Yeah.
I think the fielders tend to see the Leggy stare more than anyone else.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You get the Leggy stare and
he reinvented himself, didn't he, into a slow bowler for the
second 11 for a number of years. He got a lot of wickets bowling his leg spin.
Yeah. So I'm gonna park your question about keeper, Simon, just for a second, because my next batter, number 4, is another wicketkeeper. So any guesses?
Oh, no.
I've gone for Glenn Bridson.
Glenn Bridson, current captain.
Current captain, and another wicketkeeper with a female nickname, Glenda. So Susie and Glenda.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously one of our, I think, finest homegrown talents. He's become Mr. Dependable in terms of run scoring, and he's scored 500 plus runs in every season since 2010, apart from one.
Someone has been on play cricket. He's been living on play cricket.
Is that league runs?
Can't remember now.
No, he doesn't play. He doesn't play a lot of friendly cricket. So
I don't think it would be, but still,
probably includes VKO and that thing.
Yeah, it's that's quite an achievement to not have only have one season since 2010, last 14 years to have not scored 500 runs. It's good. I remember sharing a 130 odd run partnership with Glenn when he first broke into the first team up here, and I just thought this lad's got something pretty special. So, and obviously now club captain, as you say, leading from the front by example. He's probably the quietest of the Bridson clan, and very modest, unassuming, but actually knows the game inside out. Very canny.
When he has a drink, he kind of sparks into life a little bit more, which is nice.
Yeah. So coming back to the question about who keeps wicket in my favourite 11, as I say, I don't think there's much to choose between. I don't think there's much to choose between Glenn and Leggy. I'd probably plump for Glenn only because Leggy's little teasing leg breaks might come in handy if we need to winkle someone out. So, sounds good.
So who's at number 5?
Other wicketkeepers. I want to give a quick mention to, if that's okay, Ben Coulson. I've played much more cricket with him recently, but he's a Pathfinder. I played with him at Pathfinder. Again, he saw the light, came to FCC. Dashing left-handed batter, taken up wicket-keeping in his later years. Always good value for his banter on and off the field. He says the most bizarre things on the field. And he's also father of 2 of the most talented young cricketers I think I've ever seen. So I think, I'll say it here, I think those 2 will play for England one day.
Put that on the record early.
It'll be on.
Could be at a number of sports as well. They are very talented young men.
The other thing about Ben, I think he's a great mentor to the younger players. He's sort of become a bit of an unofficial leader amongst the FCC group in a lot of ways. And the other mention in terms of wicket keepers, didn't play for long, but Ali Shakman, arguably just about the best keeper between the three of those or four of those. Obviously goes down in folklore for that famous piece of cricket up here, the leg side stumping of Grant Christie, which you got on camera.
Hey. That was the famous semi-final.
Famous VKO semi-final, standing up to Grant Christie, and probably arguably the best bit of cricket, single piece of cricket. I think long furlong as witness. I don't know.
Arguably so.
Arguably so. So number 5, shall I move on?
Yeah, please.
Number 5, I've got Felix Jordan. So Felix, I think I love a match winner in any sport, and I think there aren't many cricketers who you can describe as a genuine match winner. But I think on his day, Felix is one of those. Again, homegrown talent. He's got the ability to quickly take the game away from the opposition. I think if he's in for 15 overs, you're in with a chance. And I think the other thing is that he always seems to have a knack of scoring heavily when the team really needs him. Apart from that, really nice guy, but fiercely competitive. So I think as an opposition, the worst thing you can do is wind Felix up, because he then seems to sort of flick a switch in his brain.
He needs something to get the best out of him, doesn't he?
And literally, if you're batting with him, his eyes sort of widen and he just gets this steely determination, and you think, oh man, he's in that zone.
Don't run him out.
Yeah, don't run him out. So bowls probably the fastest off spinners that I've ever seen. Darts. But great fielder, absolute gun arm. Certainly did have. I think he's got a bit of dodgy.
Is his brother better looking than him?
Oh, Simon, what do you think?
Yes, Benjamin.
He's a
I've always been a bit jealous because he is a good-looking guy.
I didn't have.
Thankfully, he doesn't come back too often, Benjamin, and flaunt it. But
try not to stand too close to him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's got the looks. He's married now, though, so he's probably let himself go.
That wasn't in my criteria, looks.
Well, you pick the team
you
based
just go for
on
the
how
competitive one, son. That's fine.
Okay.
So Toby, we touched earlier on about the Lord's game. You mentioned Graham. You mentioned Shackers. Probably most people know the fact that you got 100 for Findon at Lords in the VKO final. Take us back to that day. Take us back to the morning of the match. What your thoughts were. Just kind of give us a bit of colour about what happened during the day, and how special it became for you.
Okay. Well, I remember waking up fairly early because Evie was about 6 months and she was in the room with us, me and Laura. I remember waking up feeling pretty hungover because we'd all been taken out the night before. They lay on a proper dinner with the opposition in a restaurant, and so we met the other team. We all had a few drinks, and it was feeling slightly worse for wear in the morning. I remember feeling incredibly nervous, as you probably would expect. We had breakfast at the hotel, walked across, because we were staying at the Ramada Plaza opposite, walked across to Lord's and walked into the changing rooms and just thought, wow, this is incredible. Walked out to the balcony, wandered around the ground, went to the nursery ground, had a net on the best grass wickets you're ever likely to net on. And just sort of soaked it up. Lots of people were starting to arrive in terms of supporters. Bearing in mind, was it a 10 o'clock start? I think it was a 10 o'clock start. I've got a feeling. Might have been 11, but
I can't remember.
Anyway.
Remember the coaches? We left here. The army of coaches left. We left fairly early, didn't we?
Yeah. So, and it was quite dewy as well. It was early September. So an early start, but wow, they properly, they put on the full show for you. And we had, who did we have? We had Andy Caddick as our sort of ambassador. The other team had Ronnie Irani. We had Andy Caddick, so Andy gave us a little sort of pep talk beforehand. That was it, yeah.
So talk us through the first over of the day. Obviously, you're in at number 3. Got your pads on. Rogers and Graham open up. Rogers goes very early.
Yeah, I think it was about the 5th ball, was it? Something like
which means you're in.
Yeah, so I was on the balcony and then had to make the long walk down the stairs, and it's probably 2-3 flights of stairs to get down. and then obviously through the famous long room. Didn't have any members there clapping me like they do on the
or swearing at you.
Or swearing.
Known to do that.
Yeah, but I did have somebody open the gate for me. Actually, I think Dave Dunnigan was in the members' enclosure at the bottom,
right,
in his blazer. Maybe. Okay. Anyway, and walked out, and I remember hearing the applause and thinking, well, look, there's only sort of a relatively small proportion of the ground that are supporters in, but the noise was just like nothing I've heard before at all. We're used to playing in front of one man and his dog, and all of a sudden there was probably, 3,000-ish.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, half the village were there, weren't they?
Clapping, and it was just like, wow. And then I remember facing their quickie, Joel Hughes, I think his name was, who we'd met the night before, and they were all saying, this guy's absolutely lightning. You guys are not going to get sniffed. So already I'm thinking, oh God, I don't fancy this. And I was feeling a bit jaded, and literally took me probably 2 overs to just lay a bat on it. This guy was quick. Not doing a huge amount with it, but yeah, too quick for me. So anyway, so it was a bit of a stuttery start. But yeah, settled in, hit a couple of boundaries, and away we go.
At what point did you start thinking could do something properly special, as in beyond?
Well, I was.
Where did you think about the 100? I guess is the ultimate question, isn't it?
I'm not sure really. Probably not till quite late on, because I thought, well, if I get 50, brilliant. What a dream. And I don't think I was really thinking about 100 probably until I was on about 90, something like that.
Right. Okay, that late.
I remember thinking, or I remember getting. Well, I'm pretty sure I was out stumped. I'm not sure whether the umpire wasn't looking or it was very, very close. I remember being incredibly tired. Sully came out and was brilliant. He played a great little cameo that day. I remember flicking one off my legs and finally getting down the other end and looking up at the balcony and seeing everybody up there. It was great, really good.
And so we ended up with what, about
220 odd, something like that.
221?
Something like that.
And what was the feeling like at half time? You must have been elated that you'd got. Did you think you had enough runs to kind of be in the driver's seat?
I think it was difficult to tell at that time. They bowled pretty well. They were a good side, and it was not easy to get away. I think that the thing was that it was a short boundary. It was a very short boundary one side. So I don't recall us thinking, brilliant, we've won it, or we're not sure. I remember sitting and having the 3-course lunch, which of course I wasn't really very hungry off the bat for a couple of hours. And they brought out this 3-course lunch, and it was like amazing, like proper nice food. And you had a choice, you had a choice of starters and main and pudding. But yeah, I think we were reasonably confident at half time.
The modus operandi for those years in the VKO were get runs on the board and defend them, weren't they? That's what you did as a side, round after round.
Yeah.
So near yet so far.
And just for people that may be too young to remember, I'm just trying to think which over they managed to get because I think there was.
They got it with an over and a bit to spare. I think it was about 48.
It was well paced, wasn't it?
They had
some wickets in hand
good
as well,
opener, and a good young guy. I remember his name was Dwyer, and they called him Tumble.
Oh, all right. Mr. Tumble.
No, Tumble Dwyer.
I get it, Toby.
Oh, all right. They were always in control. We dropped a couple of catches at key times, I seem to recall, and I think some of us, myself included, didn't bowl particularly well. So I'm not sure with the ball we necessarily did as well as we might have done, but.
For everybody, all of the players, but the crowd as well, I think it was a very special day, and I think as a club, it was probably the most remarkable day of my membership. I'm sure it was for you, Tobes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, regardless of what I did, just being there and the way that they put you up the night before, as I say, and take you out and properly lay it on. I'm not sure the extent to which they do it fully like that now. I don't know. Maybe they do. But, feel incredibly privileged And of course, the semi-final up here, what a day that was.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, actually, some of the VKO sort of national round games we've had up here have actually almost eclipsed that purely because of the result, where we've had some of those wins in the round game, the national rounds, that have been real special days for the club as well. Wasn't just that one day, was it? And at that time, there was a period of every year kind of feeling
like there was hope.
Yeah.
And we did. Well, of course, we had 2 losing semi-finals, 2003 and 2005. So we had the one up here against the team, and then obviously the one where we went all the way to Wales and played in the most miserable place ever.
Sully Centurion.
Yeah, against a bunch of basically pro cricketers, weren't they?
Yeah.
So,
and they changed the rules after that.
They did.
Yeah, they did. But yeah, that semi-final up here, and I think it was club weekend as well. I'm pretty sure it was club weekend, and that was a pretty memorable club weekend.
Well, so just to sort of tell the whole story, you won man of the match that day. You were presented a shield, a salver.
Yeah.
By, I can't remember who it was.
Who was the cricketer editors? The cricketer's editor. The Cricketer magazine. And it was his wife. I think he died, and it was his wife. Anyway, nobody particularly notable. But yeah, that was great, and great seeing, looking out and seeing all of our Findon supporters, standing in front of the pavilion at Lord's. Amazing.
A day for the ages, indeed.
Well, let's carry on with some selection of your favourite side, Toby. We've done the top 5. Maybe you can fill us in with number 6 and 7.
Yes. So number 6, again, this is still middle order, but packing this middle order. I've gone for Sully, Paul O'Sullivan. So I grew up with Sully. We went to the same schools. We played junior cricket up here at Findon. And we played for many years in the same Findon team during that sort of, arguably, the golden era and late 90s throughout the 2000s. So with me at Slip, Sully in the gully, we spent many long summer afternoons chatting and watching the batters nicking off to Jimbo and Nige in their opening spells. We go back a long way, as I say, and it was fitting, therefore, that he was out there in the middle at Lord's. So when I got the 100, so that was nice. So Sully is my number 6, good little dibbly-dobbly swing bowler as well.
Arguably the worst starter I've ever seen.
Yeah, he was
I've been at the other end and watched him play miss by a good foot. I've never seen anyone as
he was
nervous
a very nervous starter,
and
in the opposition.
The loudest caller as well.
Yeah, but the opposition, he would come in and the opposition, you bowled him to the first 2 or 3 balls. The opposition would think he'd reverse the order or something, and because he's absolutely nowhere near it and jittery and fiddling around. And then he smashed one through his square leg. First couple of overs out the way, once one came out the middle, he was off and running and was class from there on.
Yeah.
Probably the neatest, tidiest.
Always the best turned out cricketer. Yeah. He still is. He's immaculate, Sully. Always got
irons his polyesters.
Yeah. His pads are never dirty. He's immaculate. And always got his collar up, or tended to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Sully's sort of makes up the remainder of that middle order. Just special mentions for others, really. Coxey, great middle order batter, quick as lightning between the wickets, always first choice cover fielder. I think the youngsters listening would probably think, really, Coxey? But man, he was
unluckiest fielder. I think that trophy and the Duck Cup's almost his alone.
He played some really good knocks as well. He played a pretty memorable cameo to Fisher's 100 over at Linton Park, if you remember. So I think he may have only got 30 odd, but it was a precious 30. And the other thing about Cox is that he's a great drinking partner. So I think, Spotty, you described him as Cox is a great wingman. Yeah. Great to have by your side when you're out and about. Very reliable whenever.
Well, if you've got a blocked toilet or sink or whatever, he's quite useful for that as well, Coxey. Yeah.
That's true.
Man of many uses.
And a lovely chap as well. So, yeah. So that's my middle order. All-rounder.
Yeah.
Shall I go with that next? I think this person might have been mentioned in Dave Goodman's team, actually. But John Rogers, so affectionately known as Fish, obviously, because he used to drink like one. Generally considered to be the most talented cricketer Findon has produced. We all know about his batting exploits, explosive batter, hit the ball harder than anyone I've ever seen. Him and Dickie Whitcomb, I think, probably are two that hit the ball as hard as I've seen. Loved to hit it long and straight. Oppo would often find him out sometimes a bit early on with that, but he just saw that as a challenge.
It's a challenge.
The
further you put the fielder, the further you've got to hit
put the fielder back in the field, and then
you'll try and clear him still.
He always wore a jumper when batting as well.
On the hottest of days.
Yeah.
So it could be the most sweltering sunshine. He'd at least be wearing a short sleeve jumper.
I don't remember if he did that in the early days or whether that was part of his back issues, was trying to keep his back warm. I can't remember. I don't remember as a kid him doing that, but certainly in the latter years he always wore his sleeveless.
Loads of memorable innings, but I think for me that unbeaten 100 at Linton Park was probably the standout. That was the quarterfinals could have been 2003, could have been 2005, can't remember which. But him and Coxey, we were 95 for 6, chasing 200. Him and Coxey came in and put on 100 and saw us home with an over to spare. So pretty memorable innings. Best known for his batting, arguably, but he was also extremely canny medium pace bowler. Mixed up his pace, bowled in swingers, out swingers, off cutters, off breaks. I don't think he ever bowled the same ball twice. It was literally mixed it up constantly. Club captain for 7 years over 2 spells. And I think his captaincy was equally creative and unpredictable as his bowling, actually. So he'd often switch up batting orders and he was always very keen to show when people had done well the previous week or couple of weeks. Don't care if you're a bowler, you're at number 3 or 4 now. So he was always happy to switch things around. Lots of different bowling changes, field positions. Ben Stokes-esque, possibly, in that respect.
Yep.
Not afraid to
say it's a good analogy. He does. You'd follow him. You just knew that he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And there was always some method in his madness.
The opposition knew him as well.
He was a step. He was a step ahead, and everyone respected him on the cricket field or in the bar. Yeah,
loved a beer after the match, as you say. He had the most alarming habit, though. Do you remember we went through that phase of putting his arm between your legs? He'd come up behind you, stick his arm between your legs, and lift you up.
Yeah.
Which was most bizarre.
Luckily, with his back, he grew out of that habit. That's probably how he did his back. Wasn't the cricket and hockey? True
FCC legend, I would suggest.
Talking of FCC legends, who were your favourite umpires, Tobes?
Oh, umpires. Okay, so I think our best umpires, I'd go with Alan Higgins along with Chappers. I would suggest those two were our best in terms of umpires over the years. Higgy, now life member and general Findon legend. At the other end, so it'd be a toss-up with Higgy and Chappers. At the other end, I'd go with Wingrove, Oliver Wingrove. So great character. Umpired in the shortest shorts and was prone to get quite thirsty towards the end of the game. So when we were bowling, he'd often sort of be heard to mutter to the bowler, "The bar's open. It's about time for an appeal, so we can all F off."
Why are you whispering?
Well, no, because that's what he would have done.
Right.
He's not just going to say, make an appeal and we can all go off. So he was always good value in that respect. And do you remember the thing that stands out for me about Wingrove, bizarrely, is that auction of promises that year.
Yeah.
Where, and for everybody listening, that was a sort of annual thing, wasn't it? Where people used to donate prizes that would get auctioned for club funds or charity or whatever. And you'd run through the list of prizes, and there'd be a day at the races donated by Josh and Nick or something, and there'd be a a platter of meat from Duffield Butchers and corporate hospitality at a Sussex game from the Britsons or whatever. And then there was a pair of size 8 ladies court shoes.
Yeah.
Donated by Oliver Whitgrove. Which, I mean, that's a slightly odd thing to bring, but size 8.
Well, he bought the wrong size, obviously. Was my understanding.
But you are narrowing
and he couldn't get his money back.
You're narrowing down your market, right, in terms of anyone interested. In a pair of ladies' court shoes, but size 8. Anyway, but a great character. And sorry, one other umpire that I've got to mention is Bert Tamore. Do you remember
Bert?
Oh, bless him. So he used to umpire for us on a Sunday. He was actually, I think he was a panel umpire, though, at that time, doing sort of Premier League stuff. Goodness knows how. So he used to umpire for us on a Sunday. He must have been in his 80s.
He was deaf as a post.
Absolutely deaf as a post. And he used to get... The best thing about Bert was that he used to get really excited and caught up in the moment. So any direct hit was a run-out, regardless of if the batter was in or not. And I remember one game, a Sunday game at Hazelmere, where I was on a hat-trick, and I bowled the third ball, and it's clearly not hitting the stumps, but we've all gone up. Huge appeal, and Bert's given it out. And I think the batter started walking off, and I think we just had to call him back and say, sorry, that was clearly not out. So he was a great guy, but yeah, not the best.
I remember Bert umpiring for us at Lower Beeding on a Sunday and appealing himself from square leg, a direct hit, and Bert appealed, and then subsequently gave it out, having appealed, forgetting. And that's
but his hearing aid used to whistle. Yeah, he couldn't hear it. Like
everyone else could.
It was hilarious.
He was a great character.
Let's keep moving on, Tobe. So I think
I've got just a couple of special mentions of other all-rounders. Is that right? Sorry, that didn't quite.
This is your moment and time to shine.
Okay. So Nick Hawke, played with Nick a lot as a junior, then at Pathfinder, then back at Findon. Nick was a really good all-rounder, bats anywhere in the top 6, useful medium-pace bowler, nips it around. Harry Metters, another one who could have slotted in really well, son of the great Mike Metters, Findon legend. And another one of our own, Harry. So I remember Mike throwing the ball down to Harry when he was probably 4 or 5 in the nets up here.
Wasn't there a story about Mike Metters and Nick Hawke?
I don't know. Well, Mike's on later. Why don't you ask him?
Yeah, I might do, actually.
Okay.
I'll make a note of that one.
Harry, really talented batter. He's got 4 league hundreds to his name. That's no mean feat. Arguably our best ever fielder, I would suggest. I've got really good memories of me and Harry putting on 215, I think it was, against Sterling's up here a few years ago. And the other one that didn't quite make it, but was close, was Nigel Botting, a.k.a. Nobby. Again, another one I played a lot of cricket with at Pathfinder before playing together at Findon. A classy stroke maker, I think, in his day. Useful away swing bowler. And, of course, he had another very special talent, which he was very proud of.
Indeed, one of the best carpet fitters around.
Yeah. I'm not talking about his Frank Spencer. And I think, Spidey, you remember this, I think one of the funniest cricketing moments with Nobby was when we played over at Bexhill.
It wasn't funny.
Well,
because the guy who was playing for Bexhill hadn't taken his tablets, which obviously gave him that kind of stable persona. And every time Harris was about to come into bowl, and every time Nobby bent down, the guy would take his guard. So he would wait for Nobby. So Nobby decided to wait for this guy to take his guard before he would bend down. And eventually it got to the point where it was a Mexican standoff. Nobby wasn't bending down. The guy wasn't taking guard. So Harris was just coming and bowled it with the stumps completely open. And then it kind of kicked off, didn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, this sort of went on for quite a while. And, of course, all the time this batsman got more and more angry. And we nicknamed him Deaf, didn't we, because of his deathly stare. Nobby wasn't going to shift on it. He would go down. I'll go down when I want, mate. And we just giggled and giggled more and more. The more angry he got, the more we giggled in the slips. And of course, Harris was equally amused by it all. Anyway, and the skipper came in to us afterwards into our changing room and said, "Look, really sorry about that. Yeah, he's not taking his medication." So, but yeah, no, you're right. Not really very funny, but I do remember it well.
So I think in selection terms, we're getting into the bowlers now.
We are.
So why don't we go for your slow bowlers, Tobe?
Oh, okay. Well, I've only got one slow bowler, I think. Oh no, I've got two. Sorry. Can I? Yeah. Okay. I'll start with my first slow bowler, and that's Mark Stewart. So Mark sadly passed away last year, but he was quite simply the best spinner I've ever played with. He was very, very good. He bowled these sort of fierce, spitting leg spinners that you could literally hear fizzing through the air as you stood. I was at first slip, and you could hear this thing fizzing through the air. Huge amount of sort of pace and energy on the ball, which I think, whenever I'm sort of coaching young spinners, I just get them to make sure you get loads of energy on that ball. And Mark was a prime example of that. He took 57 wickets in one season. I think that might be a record, but anyway. Ferocious batter on his day. I remember seeing him hit two of the biggest sixes into the next door primary school when we played. I think it was Barkham or Balkham, one of the two, in the village knockout. He earned the nickname of the Fat Slogger, which I always thought that was a bit harsh because he wasn't particularly fat, was he? Oh, he was a slogger, or he could slog it, but he wasn't fat. But anyway, Mark Stewart, standout spinner for me. He was top notch. I'm going to save my second spinner, if that's all right.
Okay.
For later. I'm going to go whiz back up to my number 8 and my first quicker bowler, which is James Iago. So where do I start?
So he's a Findon legend. Just talk us through what Jimbo did for the club, not just as a player, but he was also captain as well.
He was, yeah. Well, he was an ever-present of that sort of, if you like, golden era, late 90s all the way through 2000s. He took on the captaincy as well at a period of sort of, I guess, restructuring and rebuilding in, I'm looking at
2013-14.
2013-14, yeah. And I think, he became a real mentor, actually, for lots of the junior players now, the likes of Bradley and Glenn and Felix and Harry, Graham Mansell, you could argue. So he was the sort of father figure in some ways of some of those younger players that are now making up the core of our first 11. He was a war hero.
Yeah.
Father of 5, youngest of the great Iago clan. And he was a fine figure of a man in lots of ways.
He'd often get naked.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that's demonstrated through his frequent nudity. Yeah.
Marching at the same time.
Yeah. He'll always be best known for getting naked whenever he got the chance, really. He's very proud of being in the RAF, and he'd demonstrate that marching prowess. You'd be stood in the bar here having a drink, and then he'd disappear and come back a few minutes later, absolutely stark naked, with a cricket bat in his arm, marching up and down. But he did it with such a serious look on his face. Yeah. Like he took real pride in these manoeuvres. He wasn't going to find it amusing. This was serious stuff. So yeah, lots of naked marching.
I believe he's now coach of the RAF cricket team.
Oh, is he?
Is he?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what their kit is.
It's there's not a lot of it.
He took a lot of wickets as well. Again, being back through play cricket, 450 wickets playing for Findon, 48 league wickets in a single season. That's pretty impressive. And
he could bowl all afternoon. All afternoon.
And actually, I always thought was technically a really good bat, even though he ran like Zorro with it.
That was a family thing. Yeah.
So Jimbo, great character. I think I'd like a little special mention for his late brother John as well. Again, whilst I didn't play a huge amount of cricket with John, whenever I did, he just cracked me up.
John was the best fun to play cricket with.
He would always come out with something bizarre but incredibly amusing. And he was such a generous and kind guy.
Really nice, lovely guy. He was hilariously funny even when he was being serious. I don't think he realised that. So, special mention to John. So that's Jimbo. And then my other opening bowler, bowled together with Jimbo for many, many years, Nigel Waller. So Nigel was club captain for 8 years with me as his vice captain. I'm not sure I added that much, but so he oversaw the club's most successful period, winning 5 league titles in a row from 2000 to 2004, and getting us to 2 VKO semi-finals, so in 2003 and 2005. Always led from the front. He had this sort of rhythmic bowling action, always bowled sort of slightly within himself.
Repetitive, wasn't it?
Repetitive, very accurate, bowled a great nipper backer, as he used to call it. And he was quite an underrated batter, to be fair. Would have probably been in most sides top 5 or 6.
Yeah, he had
he had this weird habit.
That's right, touching his pads before the bowler came in.
His left pad every ball.
Yeah.
But he also had one of the safest pair of hands, even though I thought it was always odd because he used to sort of catch it a bit.
Yes, slightly Martin Ramsey.
Snap. But lovely guy, fiercely competitive on the field. Wasn't afraid to give us both barrels in the changing room.
There was that famous story that I think it was the Herald Cup at the Manor Ground, where I think we got a very low score, very below par score, and he's came in and he basically told us how village we were. I was in the toilet area with Fishy and we both pissed ourselves laughing, and then the whole changing room just burst into laughter, and it really kind of got us up for the second innings. I think we must have played Littlehampton, I think, in the final when we won. And we look back now laughing about it, but if we hadn't, I think it might not be such a fun story. But
yeah, and the worst scenario was when, if us batters had failed and he'd gone in and scored 30 odd non out and we were skittled for 140 or whatever, he'd come in and give us both barrels. And yeah, that was.
But then once you got in the bar.
Oh yeah, then it was fine.
It
was always, it was a 10-minute lock the door, in you come, hairdryer treatment, and then all fine after that. But luckily we were very successful. There weren't many times he had to do that. So, but yeah, and whilst I've played under a few really, really good captains, I think he would get my vote as my favourite 11th captain of this side. So.
Okay, well, we're kind of running out of time, Tobe, so we're going to crack on.
One spinning place
left. One spinning left. Spotty, you were a bit worried about whether you might or might not get in. But you've snuck in.
Yes! I never thought I'd get in anyone's team.
Jason, we all know this has been changed because of the puppy dog eyes you give him.
Yes!
Well, we didn't play much league cricket together, but I've always enjoyed playing cricket on a Sunday, evening league. We played a lot of vets cricket recently.
Yeah.
And of course, remember that famous Victorian cricket match that we recreated up here to celebrate our 150th anniversary. So always highly entertaining. One of our longest standing members, very protective of the sort of FCC values and traditions, which I think is really important. We need to maintain those. I've described you as a hard-hitting batsman here. I'm not sure about that. But anyway,
I can't actually remember.
Well, I've just scrubbed out spinners here and changed it to slow bowlers.
Well, yeah. I mean, and also easily the tallest wicketkeeper there's ever been.
What about Biley?
No, you're taller.
Taller than Biley?
I think you're taller than Biley.
But I'm not sure Biley played first 11, so... Ricky.
But yeah, Spidey used to bowl these amazingly high off-spin bombs, I think you'd call them. He'd launch into the air so high that they generally came down sort of vertically and they'd sort of hit the ground with this massive thud.
We played Henfield once, and the guy, because at Henfield you've got the trees at one end, the sun was so low, he had to call for a pair of sunglasses because I was chucking it so high.
But it was really difficult because they were going so high, and because, up here, if it's a bit damp, they just used to make these craters and batters couldn't get it away because it wasn't bouncing. It was just... Anyway, and then we had there were so many amusing tales involving you, Spider, but I think that the one at Stirling's makes me laugh. The game where we were batting at the end and Papa Smurf was bowling. Do you remember that?
Ah, yeah. I got out because you couldn't get out of the way. So Toby was number 11. I was number 10. We always picked the numbers out of a hat. And I think we'd had a few beers in the bar.
Well, it was Stirling Sunday. It was a barbecue, a few beers. So we manufactured 10 and 11.
That's right. And Papa Smurf was bowling. And he bowled me a kind of half volley on leg stump, which I've smacked. And it was coming at you. And all I can remember was you trying to get out of the way. It hit you on the chest. And Papa Smurf put one hand on his hip and caught it with the other hand. It was like a team.
I think he just opened his pocket and it popped in. It was brilliant. A comedy end to a comedy dismissal. Good fun.
Well,
can I just say quickly, 12th and 13th men, we mentioned them earlier, but my boys have loved playing cricket with those, so I had to squeeze them in. Noah and Ruben Kingsbury. 12th and 13th men.
Well, Toby, it's been a joy and a pleasure to speak to you. The podcast is all about preserving memories of the cricket club, and to hear about the final and your 100, to have that on tape now is great. Thank you for coming in to see us. Do you feel that the club's in good shape?
Really good shape, yeah. I think getting 3 sides out on a Saturday is continuing to be slightly challenging, particularly early season, but I'm confident with all of the juniors we've got coming through now that we've got plenty of future senior cricketers coming through the ranks as juniors now. So yeah, really pleased, and the ground's looking lovely. Look at it; it's never looked so nice.
Well, that's all down to Kenzie.
Yeah, didn't get in the side, but the ground's looking all right.
Yeah.
It's a bowl a bit slow.
I can't believe you're in the side.
I can't.
We'll be editing this one severely, I tell you.
Well, Toby, thank you for your time today. This is the second of the From the Hill End podcast, so thank you for being part of the the early episodes, and we look forward to seeing you one day soon.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, cowboy.
Cheers.
Findon!